So these next two problems are called You Try It problems. So I really do want you to try it. That's what they're intended to be in the notes. For this first one, I do want to help you set it up though a little bit. So we've got this information given to us in the top about cocoa bean production. And I'm going to help you write this as an ordered pair because we actually haven't done this yet in the notes. So it talks about a year and how many tons, million metric tons of cocoa beans that we have. And we really need to look down to part A for a second because this is where it tells me that X is going to be the number of years after 2000. So please don't just use the regular years. Instead, my first order pair is going to be 5 for 2005, comma 3.4. My second ordered pair is going to be from 2015, so it's going to be 15, comma 4.2. So you're going to use those two ordered pairs to do all the different parts here. Part A is just asking for the slope and a sentence. Part B is asking you to write the linear equation, so y equals mx plus b. And part C and D are asking you to use that equation from part B. So go ahead and pause. It might take you a second to get all the way through all of them. And if you can't get through all of them, at least do A, then you can watch the video. Make sure you have A right, then you could try B and kind of go back and forth that way as well if you didn't want to do all of them at one time. But really and truly, they're meant for you to try these. That's why we have them in the notes. It's the best way to get through this rather long section is for you to make sure and try them before you jump into My Math Lab. All right, so hit pause. Hopefully you've hit pause and you've done at least A. Maybe you've worked through all of them, but at least A here. We're going to find the slope, and our slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to plug in those numbers from up above that I wrote as the ordered pair for you guys. Type it in the numerator, I get 0.8. Type it in the denominator, I get 10. And that's just going to leave me with 0.08. We don't want to leave it as 0.8 over 10. That's not actually a reduced fraction. So you could type it in your calculator to get the reduced fraction, or it's fine to leave it as 0.08 because it came out to be a perfect decimal. Now I do need to write this answer, a sentence for this answer. So I'm going to do that to finish up A. I'm going to start with that own average because it is that average rate of change like we talked about in a previous video. So own average, the production of our beans increased 0.08, and we are measuring in million metric tons per year, because my X values down here were years. Those were years. Between 2005 and 2015. So that's a great sentence. I've got my increase there because it's positive. I've got my units, millions of metric tons per year. I've got that own average and the year 2005 and 2015. All right, if you haven't tried B, go ahead and pause and try B. If you have, let's go ahead and go over it. We want to write the linear equation. We have M, we have a point, and I need to now find B. Doesn't matter what point you plug in. This one really doesn't matter. I'm just going to go with the first one. I'm going to plug in my X, my Y, and my M from up above. 0.08 times 5 is 0.4. I'm going to solve for B. So I get B is 3. So my equation then, I know my X, I know my M, and I know my B. I wrote B there instead of the number. So I can get my equation. Now we're going to use that equation in C and D. So again, if you haven't tried it, now's the time to hit pause. Try C and D. B is the hardest one. So even if you didn't try B, really and truly try C and D. I think you can get those and then come back to the video. If you have tried C, we'll go ahead. 2012, we don't want to plug in 12. Instead, let's see, we started in the year 2000 way back up here. So 2012 minus 2000 means I'm going to plug in 12 for X. X are my years. That's how I know I'm plugging in for X. I'm going to type that in my calculator. So that gives me 3.96. The units for this are millions of metric tons of those beans. Last one of these. I'm going to tell you how much metric tons, so that's Y, and I'm solving for X. So I'm going to plug 5 in for Y, and I'm going to solve this equation for X. So doing all my algebra steps. So I get 25. Remember, it did ask for the year. 25 is not a year. Going back to that part A, up here I know I've circled it a whole bunch, but it's the number of years since 2000. So I'm going to add 25 to 2000 to get my answer of 2025.